please stand up. I have a few questions, and we're going to weed some things out. If you own a home and have a mortgage or pay interest, have a seat. If you have a home equity loan or some sort of line of credit against the home that you own, please be seated. If you own a car and you owe money on that car, if you have a loan, please be seated. If you have a credit card, if you have any debt, any delayed payments, any interest, any penalties on that credit card, please be seated. If you have any type of loan, a student loan, a bank loan, a loan from your family, a loan from your friends, and you owe on that loan, please be seated. If you have any line of credit, any outstanding debt, if you've missed your rent, if you've defaulted on that obligation, on that rent, please be seated. If you have had to declare bankruptcy to cover any of these situations, or be in that situation where you've needed help through the legal system, please be seated. If you're not currently employed, or if you've missed or you owe taxes, or if you spend more than you make, please be seated. Just take a moment and look. Now I want everybody to stand back up. If you're a disciple, please be seated. They're very serious. The reason, if we are going to go into all the world, we have to talk about finances and administration. We have to. Here's the world's perspective. It flat out encourages us to spend more than we make. It aggressively teaches us to be discontent. Advertising causes us to covet and to envy, to have more than what we need, to have more than what we want. It makes things attractive to us, and it's wrong. Society attaches our self-worth to our net worth. That's what the world does. But the Bible gives us a different perspective. The Bible says it commands us to provide for our families, to be content, and to be rich in good deeds. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 8. If anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for his immediate family, he has denied the faith, and he is worse than an unbeliever. 1 Timothy 6, verse 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. 1 Timothy 6, verse 17. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. The Bible perspective of what type of lifestyle we are supposed to live. In chapter 5 and verse 8, it says that we are supposed to take care of our immediate families. If you have a wife or if you have children, we are to put food on the table. We should be employed. We should have a job. We should be able to do the things that it says, that the Bible tells me here I'm supposed to provide for my family. And if I don't, I've denied the faith, and I am worse than an unbeliever. That's pretty serious. It talks about if we have been blessed, if we've been given and have an accountability, we're supposed to be rich in good deeds. But the key of these three scriptures for me is about contentment. It's about being content and understanding from a biblical standpoint, not comfortable. Not what Michael talked about, how Satan wants to deceive us and how we want to get comfortable. He's talking about a contentment. And there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. David Jeremiah, and here's his definition of contentment. He says, it's no regrets of the past, no envy of the present, and no fear of the future. Do you have that type of contentment? Are you prepared in that way to understand what it means to be content? And I think that there's an example in the Bible for us to look to and think about as it relates to finding that biblical contentment and what it means for us. Let's go to Philippians 4. Philippians 4, verse 11, Paul writes, I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through Him who gives me strength. Well, who was Paul? Well, here's a guy that knew what it was to be in need and have plenty. Here's a guy that knew what it was to be in want and to live in plenty. But I think he had to have the plenty before he understood the other things that were out there. Here's a guy circumcised on the 8th day, the people of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews. With regards to the law, a Pharisee. He was wealthy, he was well-educated, and he was well-trained. But what did he do? And what decision did he make? This guy ended up, like we talk about, he was imprisoned, he was flogged, he was beaten, he was stoned, he was shipwrecked. He was constantly on the move. He was always in danger. He labored, he toiled, he went without sleep, he went without food, he was cold, he was naked, he was in need, he was in want, he was beheaded. Go anywhere, do anything, give up everything. I've had to step back and break that down. Go anywhere. Why not? I want to go to Germany. I'd love to visit Germany. I'd love to go to London. I'd love to visit you down in Santiago. We can go anywhere. We can do anything. We're willing to try anything, aren't we? Really? Why not? But to give up everything. That's where the real cost comes into play. Not so fast. We got to understand what that means. When we fully decide to give up everything and to follow Jesus, it's a great cost. But there are great rewards that come along with it. And I think for us as a movement, we have to understand the refinements that are taking places in our lives and how God prunes us and disciplines us so that we are broken down to completely rely on Him. And as men leading our wives, our future wives, our families, we've got to roll up our sleeves and be able to go to work. And it's interesting, and I'm grateful that people think enough at times to say, you know what, bro, can you help me out? I want some input on my finances or my situation, and can we talk? And can I get some input from you? But, for me personally, that there's a scripture that has resoundingly come home to rest for me in the last couple of years. And it's not complicated. And it's Proverbs 13:11. It talks about he who gathers money little by little makes it grow. There is no other advice. There isn't. There's no other counsel. And for me personally, just to frame it a little bit, and I'm grateful to have the responsibility that I've been entrusted with here. I'm thankful for it. I believe I can make a difference. I want to make a difference. But to frame who I am as a person is, I'm the youngest of 8 kids. My parents survived the Great Depression. My dad went to World War II. He did not have a college education. I grew up in rural Iowa. He stepped out of his job in his early 50s and made a huge risk of buying his own business. I went off to work when I was 12 years old. I had to pay for my college education. I spent 22 years trying to build, a corporate career. I had 16 different positions in 22 years, 15 promotions. I was on that path to success. And you know what? That's what I say when you go anywhere, do anything, give up everything. Do you understand what it means when you have to make those choices? I've had to count that cost. And there is a cost associated with it. And I'm not an accountant. And it's not saying about what I'm not, but I know what I am. And that's all that I am. And it's because I just want to be used in a way that God will allow me to be used in that way. But I want to be an example. I want to be responsible. And I want to instill the fact that this, even before I was discipled, this is how I tried to live my life. And it is about gathering it little by little. There are no quick schemes. There's no way. God can't bless that. That's not what he encourages how to live our lives and the things that we need to do and how we ought to be. And we've got to be responsible, and we've got to be good examples in that way. And I just want to encourage us to continue to strive to work together and to do the right thing and to really put off all that entangles us and ensnares us from a worldly standpoint and understand what the Bible talks about in this way. That's what's going to move us and change us and allow us to be unified and to make a difference and to be that light in the world that people can be attracted to and that they can trust and that they can come to, that they can find the refreshment that they need. Because the world's not going to give it to them. They're going to be deceived and they're going to be denied. And it's temporary and it's fleeting. We have something to offer them from that standpoint. And we need to do it with our example in our finances. And as we do that and we go anywhere, do anything, and give up everything, we have great plans. We have awesome plans. And administratively, I want to shift a little bit now. That's the charge from a financial standpoint. And administratively, there's many, many things we want to do as well. And if you think about it, from a standpoint, and your scripture was spot on, my brother Andrew, and when you think about it, it is, we want to avoid any criticism of the way we administer to the liberal gift. For we are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of men. This is 2 Corinthians 8, verse 20 and 21. And administratively for the kingdom, we are in a situation where this is one of the things we talk about, where you can serve and what you can do, and the aspect of if you have hopes and dreams to be an evangelist or to support mercy worldwide or whatever your dreams are, one of the most exciting places you could possibly think about coming could be administration. I know it. We have hopes and dreams in this area as well. And this is where we've got to get some of the fundamental building blocks down. And I want to just share a few things with you that we've got to do as a movement. And if we do these things at a movement, that base is built and we are able to really allow ourselves to propel forward. But we've got to, as we say, we had a brief a global administrative meeting on Saturday morning. And just to highlight some of the things that we talked about, there's really 4 primary things administratively we need to do in our churches. And we've got to get these things right, and we've got to do them right in the eyes of men, not just before the eyes of the Lord as well. We need to make sure that we are properly doing the accounting in our churches. That is the reporting of the numbers and the financials. We need to make sure that anything that is regulated from an insurance standpoint, that we're doing it right and properly. We need to make sure that our taxes and our payroll is done in an accurate and proper manner. We need to understand that where legal implications are taking place, we need to make sure that we are following the laws of the land in that way. And I think that the shepherds yesterday and the examples that they shared are so appropriate for us and understand what we need to do. We are moving with a number of the churches to start to centralize our reporting, to gather the information. We have to do this to understand. We are a unified group. We need to understand that we're in this. We are all for one and one for all. We are a united band of brothers and sisters. That's what we're about. And administratively, we want to start to navigate through that to help the churches be unencumbered, for the ministries to do what they need to do, to move forward from that standpoint. The centralized reporting of the numbers. We need to understand what's going on and what's taking place. Who's in attendance? How many are being baptized? Are there followaways? What's going on in these particular areas? And you know that when Jesus sent out the 12, what did they do when they came back? They reported. There's a reason and a purpose that we have to do that. We need to understand what's going on. And there's primary churches that are there. We know we have our remnant groups and we have the international churches. But we want to work together in being able to do that and manage through these things. We want to be in a situation where, as we report these numbers, for the reporting churches, which there are 11, and let me list those 11 churches for you very quickly here, is Chicago, Syracuse, Los Angeles, New York, Santiago, Phoenix, D.C., Portland, Honolulu, Hilo, and Eugene. Now, those 11 churches are reporting, and they're reporting for a very specific reason. They're reporting because one of two things are occurring. Number one, those churches are providing financially back to the movement as a whole. They are either helping us as it relates to the internet ministry, they are helping us as it relates to the mission field, and they're helping us as it relates to Mercy Worldwide. And those are needs that, if we stand alone, we cannot do. If we stand together, we can do. So those elements of things, if each one of those churches are on a continuous basis helping us out financially as a movement. And again, as it relates to the element of, if they're not helping financially right now, it is working together to send disciples to other churches. And one of the great examples that just has really impacted not only Phoenix, but LA, is the work and the sacrifice that the Phoenix church has done by allowing Mike Patterson and a team to come here to LA so that Mike can increase his training. And that is significant. And that is sharing and pooling our resources together. These are things that we absolutely have to do. And we need to do together. The churches have seen more than 20% growth this year. There's well over 1,000 in attendance on Sundays. And when you look at the things collectively, we've gotten contributions close to $1 million year to date. $1 million have come into the movement of the churches that are recording. And our average contribution on a weekly basis, including our special contributions, is over $30,000 a week. But we've got to start to do other things. We've got to gather this information and get ourselves organized so that we can make wise decisions as well. We're going to start to record who is in the paid ministry staff. When were they brought on? When were they assigned? What are they earning so we understand where they're at? We need to take care of their needs. We have to. We owe it to them so that they can do their work and discharge, the duties of their ministry. And administratively, for us that are involved in that and those that we want to call to help us in this area, we've got to work together and we've got to manage this for them. We need to understand what type of benefits are available out there and what we need to do to ensure that they're taken care of in those areas, whether it's medical or dental or life or disability insurances. We need to manage these things. We need to also understand, like I talked about earlier, liability insurance and 501c3s. Where are we at? We've had an example in the church where, quite candidly, some things fell through the cracks. We've learned some hard lessons. We don't want to repeat those lessons. We need to work together to ensure that that information is flowing so that we're tight and right before the eyes of men in these particular areas. And financially as well, and we talked about it, Mercy Worldwide and the 7 churches and giving 2% of their contribution to get this benevolent arm of the church started, which is just going to motivate and help us to serve the poor and needy, but use as a platform for outreach as well. But it requires money, it requires planning, it requires administration to do this. And these are the things that we want to do, and we have to do collectively as a group. And we want to add more churches. And just during the conference, Phoenix has stepped up and they're going to start to give to Mercy Worldwide as well. And we want to add more later on. And we talk about the planning and the pooling of our resources. And short term, it's really about supporting the mission field. It is about making sure that internet ministry is built strong. And I know for my wife and I, 2 years ago, without the internet, we wouldn't have been able to make the choices and decisions that we made. And we cannot underestimate how important that is. And as we grow the investment financially to ensure that we enable Rob and we enable Jeremy and Ron to do what they need to do to propel that ministry forward as well. But with the reporting comes a few insights. And one of the insights is today we're very reliant on special contributions. We talked about the money that's been collected. But to date, with the churches, we want to understand, when do we have special contributions planned? What's the purpose of the special contribution? We obviously have to serve the needs of our own local congregations, but we have to be in a situation where we understand what are we moving forward in the mission field and really working together to ensure that the money gets where it needs to go to support the mission field as well. And to date, 44% of our entire contribution has come from special contributions. That's too high. And we've got to understand that we've got to get our base right and build our weekly contributions out so that within the local churches we can do what we need to do. But we need to start to build that base out and not be as reliant as we are currently on the special contributions. And as we go forward to work together with those special contributions to do what we need to do. Near-term, long-term planning that takes place. And you heard the 5-year plan and everything. But financially, we got to get behind KIPP and get behind the leaders to understand how are we going to do this financially. And it's just a great vision and great plans, but it takes, to fulfill these dreams and these prayers, it takes financial planning. And if you step back in the near term for us, even in LA, with the great plans that we have, and it's awesome to bring in the ministry, to start to train so that people can be sent back out, that brothers and sisters can go back to the places that they need to go to, but it requires money. In the short term here, even in LA, you think about Michael and Michelle and our special missions contribution back in April. It supports Michael and Michelle training for the mission field for London. It supports Matt and Helen down in Santiago. That's what our special contribution has gone for. And we're in a situation where now, with more things that are going to happen and where the prayers and dreams are at, we need more. We need to understand how are we going to go back to the LA church and to really start to call things out, to be together, to ensure that the training, the continued training that needs to take place is going to be funded. Within the next year, we need at least a minimum of $160,000 within LA to serve the needs of those that are going to come in, to be trained, and in order to be sent back out into the mission field. We start to take a look at London and sending Michael and Michelle off. We've got to get them off on the right foot. But the work that Tim has done with the team in London, there's a solid base there, and we think that we're going to have to spend a little bit less in order to do the things we need to do to send them over because they've got a great situation that they're going to be going into. Our prayer is that Tim can come back here, and we got to train Tim further, that we can send him out. And if you step back, this base that's going to take place, it's not now building a great church in LA. It's about affording people the opportunity to walk with Kip, to walk with Nick and Tony, and to get the training that they need, that we can help them administratively to arm and equip them to go back out. And but we need help. We need help. We need help in the administrative side of things. We need help to understand. If you look, last year was the plannings. It was really sending Matt and Helen down to Santiago. And it was back to Honolulu for Kyle and Joan. It was sending out New York and D.C. In 2009, there's not a formal planting that is planned. And in 2010, it's London. And we're being, I believe, very responsible in how we're doing things and how we're administering to this aspect of the movement. And we're in a situation where forceful advancement in the plan, and you've seen it, is 2011. And we got to start to build it out and get ourselves ready. And we need another $500,000 to be able to really get ourselves in a situation just 2 short years from now, set aside to be able to send out those plantings. And we got to start to plan now to be able to do that. So these are things administratively and financially. And if you think about it, to step back, and are we content? Are we really living the lives that we need to live in order to please God and glorify God? And are we working hard and providing for our families? Are we content in that way? Are we being rich in good deeds in those ways that we talked about? And administratively, the things and the plans that we have to do, being responsible, sharing, trying to be transparent with each and every one of us, that there is no bitterness as to what's going on, any envy, anything that takes place, and questions that can be answered, and we look each other in the eye as it relates to what is doing and what we are doing with the money that comes in. We have to have that degree of integrity. And like Jay said yesterday, above reproach with regards to the finances as well. So that said, we want to start to develop a centralized administrative arm for the movement. And as I said on Saturday, we need help. And I know that we have great gifts, great talents, great experience. And to start to pull that in and understand how we are going to leverage across the administration and the internet to work together, to begin to automate things and to get ourselves in a situation where the reporting is there that we can look at, that we can be transparent in that way, and that we can really provide and enable our ministry staffs to do the things that we talked about that we want them to do. We need to start to we're going to start to distribute the information, to be able to report back and to gather that information so we understand what is going on in the movement, that we can help each other and make the right decisions as it relates to the ministry and their needs and fulfilling those obligations. We want to share the how-to of information as well. We don't, Mike O'Donnell said it the other day, we don't know. Mike has more experience than any of us, probably all of us combined as it relates to administration in the movement. But you know what? He knows that he doesn't know everything. And this is where we got to help each other in order to do these things as well. Whether it's the laws or 501c3 and taxes and so on. And just in final closing here, and this is about the importance of prayer. And when we came here 2 years ago and knowing that we would be called to help in certain areas, for me, we talked about taxes and payroll. We talked about accounting. We've talked about insurance. We've talked about the legal aspect of things. We have gone to God in prayer about an accountant. We needed an accountant. God brought us an accountant here in the LA church. We needed to get our payroll and our taxes right. There were mistakes that were made when we weren't with the right agency to be able to support that. Through a disciple in the church, her and her husband managing a business, we've been able to turn over our payroll and our taxes to them. We've had a situation where we needed help with insurance. Tony's wife, Teresa, stepped up. That's an answered prayer. That's 3 answered prayers. I stopped praying. And probably one of the most important things we need is on the legal side of things. Legal from an international standpoint. Legal on the nonprofit side of things. To help us to navigate through the laws that God has allowed to be out there, that we can be in a situation where we're doing things right. So one of my petitions and my asks of you is, if you have a desire and a need and a talent to be able to help on the administrative side, step forward and help us. Secondly, continue to pray. Pray in these areas for us, that we are honest, we're integrity, the transparency, that we have the needs fulfilled with the talents that are out there, to bring them into the kingdom and use them for His glory. Amen? Thank you so much.